So you can't see me, but I am Beth Accomando with the Cinema Junkie podcast, and I am speaking with Adam Scott, who plays Alex in the new film The Overnight. So tell me about your character, Alex.
Well, my character and Taylor Schilling's character, Taylor Schilling from Orange is the New Black, we're new to Los Angeles. We don't know a soul. We're with our young son at the park. We run into Jason Schwartzman and his son. They invite us over to their house for a play date / pizza party. And once we're over there, he and his wife convince us to stick around, put the kids to bed, and maybe hang out. And we do, and it turns into the craziest night of our lives.
Kind of a play date for the adults?
Yes.
So how would you describe this in terms of a romantic comedy? Because it does have elements of romantic comedy, but it also has kind of a lot of realism too, as well, to some of the situations.
Yeah, I don't know if I would describe it as a romantic comedy. I mean, it's definitely a comedy. I think that if there is a subgenre of the sex comedy, maybe it falls under that. I think it talks about a lot of really interesting things. I think comedy is a great delivery system for all of these really kind of smart things that Patrick was thinking about when he wrote it. We've just had this great reaction from audiences. From the first time we screened it at Sundance to last night in La Jolla, we had these crowds that are just going crazy for it, and we couldn't be happier about the reaction so far.
What do you think audiences are connecting with?
Well, I think there are a lot of good jokes in the movie, but I think also, there's a lot of mystery to the movie. There's a lot of kind of issues that couples face when they've been together for a while, and you hit a certain age and you kind of feel like your days of reinvention might be behind you. People tend to, I know I did, kind of you stop really changing when you have kids and you get married and you settle down and feel like you need to be a rock for these people in your life for good reason. And I think these characters are due for a big change, a reinvention of sorts, and they don't really know it. And it just sort of happens to them over the period of a few hours, and their whole world gets turned upside down. And so there are a lot of what ifs that play out in the movie that I think a lot of us have felt. Like if you're hanging out with another couple and on the drive home you're asking your partner, like, did you get a vibe from them? Do you think, and this was definitely a situation where, that vibe is there, and we stick around and watch it play out a bit.
And you mentioned Patrick, who is Patrick Bryce, your director and writer. I found it interesting that previously he had just come from a horror film. So did he adapt well from horror to comedy? Yeah,
I mean, a friend of mine kind of aptly described The Overnight as a horror movie where sex is the monster. It's the thing creeping around every corner. We've had screenings where people are yelling at the screen, like, don't do it, don't go in there. So there is a real tension through the whole movie that really works well, and I think a lot of kind of the release that people get from that tension is laughter.
So do you also see that this film kind of has its roots in kind of like Woody Allen films, and also maybe even something like Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, like this is a new generation's version of that kind of film?
Maybe. I've never seen Bob and Ted and Carol and Alice, so I don't know. I mean, I know we've been compared to it a lot, and I can see why. I'm ashamed, but I've never seen it. I don't know why. I just never ended. I love Paul Mazursky, and that's one I never saw.
You do a lot of comedy on television.
Yeah.
So is there a difference between playing comedy when you're shooting a TV series versus taking on a film project?
Not really. I mean, I think, we shot this movie fast. We shot the movie in 12 days. So we didn't have a lot of time. And, so it's more or less the speed that we shoot like a Parks and Recreation episode or a Party Down episode. It's pretty much the same type of schedule, and I love working that fast. I think you kind of just have to go by your instincts and kind of work on the fly, and I really love doing that. It's really fun.
Is it hard to play comedy on film where you don't have an audience reacting at all?
No, I mean we didn't have it on Parks and Rec either. So no, I don't think so. I would find waiting for a laugh to be a little distracting, but also I'm afraid I would start playing to that and wait and kind of playing to the laugh instead of staying focused on the scene and the other person in the scene.
Also, talk about the cast, because Jason Schwartzman is great, and he has this great ability to play characters that may not necessarily be 100% likable, but he makes them very appealing still.
Yeah, I mean, this role on paper, reading it, I was worried, this guy could come off a little creepy, and I think the puzzle was, why do these people stay at this house all night? I think I would have left. But then seeing Jason play the role, the question was answered pretty quickly. He's a really charming, really sweet guy, and so he brought so much to the role and really answered that question. And he just inherently brings a lot of trust to any role he plays.
Because that first scene was interesting where you meet him in the park and he's approaching your kid.
Yeah.
Which seems a little creepy, and you guys are both taken aback.
Yeah.
But then as soon as he starts to talk to you, you kind of...
Yeah, we're just immediately kind of taken with him. Yeah.
And what kind of... it is a comedy, it's very entertaining, but like I said, it does tackle some genuine issues. So what are some of the things that you feel it may deal with that are kind of new or fresh in that respect?
Well, I think, it hits male body issues pretty head on, which I think is interesting. You don't really see that in popular entertainment that often, and it's a real thing, and kind of how maybe a body issue for a man affects how he feels about himself in the world and feels about himself around other males. And I think my character in the movie, he's let this body issue sort of color his entire life and how he sees himself, and then he's sort of brought, in the over the course of the movie, which is just one night, all of that changes, and he kind of reconsiders himself and how he fits into the world. I thought that was really interesting.
Well, what's interesting too is that I think people feel like we're at a time where censorship isn't as much of a problem and that there's a lot of freedom in films, but in some ways a lot of the films made today seem a little more conservative and almost prudish compared to stuff that might have been made in the 70s.
Yeah.
And this kind of pushes the envelope.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think male nudity is something that you don't see it that often, especially when it's a required, for this movie, it's required that the nudity happens. I mean, it is a big part of the story, a big part of these two characters. It has to happen. So it was, it's an important part of the movie.
Was that a challenge for you?
Yeah, I mean, we used prosthetics, so it wasn't quite as nerve-wracking as we thought it was going to be. We put them on and we were far more comfortable, just because it's not real, even though it approximately, you could tell what we would look like naked, but it wasn't us. So we were pretty relaxed, Jason and I, wearing these things.
I noticed you also had the role of executive producer on this. Is that something that you feel actors are more prone to do nowadays, to kind of get roles that are a little more challenging or to have a little more control of their careers?
Well, I don't know, but I know that, my wife and I kind of had this project from the ground up. Mark Duplass brought us the script, and we put the movie together, and thought Patrick was a really talented guy, and it was the first movie for our company that we formed a couple of years ago, and yeah, it's a really small movie. Like I said, we shot it really quickly, and so yeah, it was a way to have complete control over something. It was made for a small amount of money, so there was no one giving us notes or looking over our shoulder. And it was, to tell ourselves that we could do it, but also to make something that we would want to see more of, kind of out in the marketplace.
Well, apparently you were right, because it's catching on.
Yeah, I hope so. It seems like people are liking it.
And the Duplass brothers have really come up from very small kind of filmmaking roots and making stuff out of practically nothing. Do you think they're helping to redefine the kind of stuff that does get made and does end up getting actually out to the public?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they make great stuff and they're really prolific. So, yeah, I think it's healthy when people like them start making a lot of stuff, because they have a eagle eye on quality control, and I think that it's great that their kind of brand of comedy and drama is catching on, because I think it's really good. I think it's representative of how a lot of people kind of look at the world.
So with this success, what do you see next for your company and for you?
Well, we have a couple TV things that we're developing. We have another movie we hope to shoot this summer. So yeah, we're keeping busy and hope to just keep making stuff that we watch a lot of television and watch a lot of movies, and so we just want to keep making stuff that we would want to pay for to go see, that we think is worth people's money,
All right. Well, thank you very much for
Thank
speaking
you.
with me.
Thanks for having me.